In our next 3 sessions, we'll be looking, as best as we can, to Spain's iGaming market itself. Here, our first speaker is David Henwood, Director of H2 Gambling Capital from the UK, who will tell us more about the size and projected growth of the Spanish online market. David, thank you for being here. Please come to the stage, and it's yours for the next session. Thank you. Thank you.
Afternoon, everybody. I can feel that you've all got your eyes set on that lunch deadline, so I promise the 3 of us will be as swift as we can to take you into that window. So my task really, or our task really, is to give you some independent perspective on the numbers. As H2, we can give you quite a bit on market performance, both historical and our forecast going forward in terms of land-based, online, percentage mobile, onshore, offshore. But we've actually done quite a bit of work over the last 2 to 3 years looking at the impact of those markets, particularly in Europe, that have tightened their restrictions, like is happening here in Spain, or it has happened here in Spain, it's happening again. So we thought we'd use this session to try and share a bit of that with you in particular, just to show what the impact is on market size, really, if you do tighten restrictions, because I think there's actually some pretty key messaging that we can get in here that may inform your discussions going forward. So 3 bits to the session. I'm just going to do a little bit on the global European context, building on what Martin did from EGBA, just so you can see the way the sector is trending. Then secondly, let's go in on Spain and see what it's doing, just very quickly in terms of how the market's performing, particularly in comparison to others. And then lastly, I'm going to give you some of those learnings from the other markets. So quickly on the global Europe market overview, just two interesting slides here. This is a trend from 2003 all the way out to 2028. The slightly darker line is Europe. And the lighter line is the global performance. And the headline really is that Europe is obviously a major driver of gambling across the world. It is pretty much matching global performance, which is obviously good. And normal service has been resumed since that little blip we had in 2021. And we've got that upward growth really accelerating up now into 2028. Our own H2 estimates for 2023, you can see there in terms of global market size and European size. So we're really back on track in terms of overtaking, where the sector was in 2019 going into the pandemic. In online, however, Europe is significantly leading the way compared to the rest of the world. So we've got, European online, was 41% in 2021. That's of all gambling. 41% of it was on the digital channel. And that compares to 25% globally. And that figure in Europe is up from a figure of 27% going into COVID. So a significant jump there, 27 to 41%. That step change into digital behavior has really happened. We are estimating, or we're starting to turn our minds to a potential that in Europe, at least, it could reach 60% of all gambling by 2027, although that is our H2 bull case and would require some considerable substitution from the land-based sector. What's driving the change? Well, it's really live, the impact of live in betting and gaming. And by that we mean live in-play, in betting, and live dealer gaming in casino. Betting has very much been the pioneer in Europe. It's now 60% of all global online gambling across the world, and it's 70% in Europe in 2021. iGaming is actually much more progressed in Europe than anywhere else in the world, 44% there versus 16% globally. And as I say, it's really sort of those 2 products that are the reason why we're seeing this drive into the digital channels. But let's not forget iLottery. And this slide's just to illustrate that over the next 3 to 4 years is actually the online lottery or the digital lottery space that is set to grow the fastest. So almost sort of catching up with the betting and gaming channels. And really, if you look at the land-based sector, it is really flatlining over the next 3 to 4 years. Even in Europe, you potentially got a bit of negative growth there in the lottery sector and the gaming sector. Okay, but what about Spain? That's the global picture. We're moving online, accelerating up. The global CAGR to 2028 is 6.3%, and the European is 5.4%. So that's the sort of pace of the growth. Now, Spain is, it's a significant market in world gambling. It is a top 10 market. You see there in 10th place in the charts. This is the 2021 figures. 2.5% of all global gambling. So, compared to, the other major European countries in that list, and obviously the big hitters in terms of the US, Japan, and China, it is very much in the picture of an important market for the sector. And that top 10 actually makes up 75% of all world gambling. If you took out, if you did this chart just for the land-based sector, Spain would be even higher still. And this is, I think what we're seeing is that, as a land-based industry, Spain is very, very strong. It would be 8th on the list. But, the bottom line there is when it comes to percentage online, and we've heard it from Martin, Spain isn't even in the top 50 yet in terms of its impact in world gambling. And in fact, I'll move that chair there. Unfortunately, it's in the bottom one. Why is that? Is it just that the online channel is underdeveloped, and needs to accelerate within the country? Why is that? We think there's a number of reasons. Obviously, Spain is a major lottery and gaming device land-based market. There are numerous points of sale, kiosk points of sale throughout the country. There's a preference for cash transactions by and large. There's also a low betting GGR margin compared to many other European markets. So arguably, you've got a lot of tradition, heritage, culture, and also seasonality. It's an outdoor Mediterranean country compared to obviously the Nordics, where a lot more people are sort of online, stuck at their computers. So these are the reasons why Spain's online market is underdeveloped, we would say. But it could also be down to the market regulation. It could also be down to the market regulation. And if you tighten too much, you will see that number stay depressed. Worth bearing in mind that the average percentage globally is 25%. 25% of all gambling online is the average across the world. Couple of key Spanish variations, just to bear in mind also why this is. Very recent figures here that we've tracked in terms of marketing spend, promotional spend, and spend on bonuses amongst the operators. And really since the middle of 2021 right through to now, the end of 2022, basically promotional spend is starting to trend down as a percentage of GGR, and bonus spend is slightly starting to go up. Now, is this an indicator of a sort of this shift from a lack of advertising to a focus on bonusing by the operators? Probably, and these charts need to extend a bit more out into the future to see that real impact. But you can see how the operators are reacting to the restrictions already. Okay, lastly, these learnings from other markets then, because Spain obviously isn't the only one that's tightening restrictions. And when Willem put up the title for the conference of moving forward in a highly regulated market, I can remember 10 years ago when I first started to do these sorts of presentations, everybody was talking about self-regulation as the future. It seems that we've sort of tipped the other way. But what are the learnings? We've got a selection of markets in the chart at the top there where H2 has done some deeper dive analysis over the last couple of years. And really the number to focus then is the percentage offshore, the extent to which the market is being driven to the black market, if you like, the offshore operators. And you can see Belgium, Sweden, Denmark in particular, their offshore markets have risen. And of course, we've got Spain in there as well at 16. percent. Denmark has seen restrictions on promotions, deposit limits come in, the tax rate's risen from 20 to 28% as well. All of those are reasons why that offshore market has risen to 18%. Belgium, the same, major restrictions on sponsorship, I'm sure you're aware, coming into effect now, again under royal decree. And Sweden, deposit limits and restrictions on certain types of bets. We know the restrictions in Spain. It's in the same area as Denmark, Belgium, and Sweden. It is increasing the offshore market rather than decreasing it. The restrictions are also leading to low onshore growth, as we've already sort of alluded to. And just another slide here to illustrate, sorry, you can see that. Denmark, Spain, and Sweden compared to those European markets in the blue where there's been less impact at the moment, or less tightening of restrictions in general right now, although obviously the UK is going through a similar dialogue at the moment. But basically, this is over 2019 to 2021. Those that have imposed the most restrictions have basically shown the lowest onshore growth. Sweden, market size, is 32% lower than those countries that haven't had major restrictions imposed on it. Denmark, there's been a 37% drop in revenue growth recently. So the analysis sort of tells a story. Our final slide is we've tried to, as H2, rather than just sort of analyze the market, we've tried to actually sort of comment on it in terms of how it should move forward. What's the optimum moving forward? Because it's all about balance, right, isn't it, in terms of getting, making sure the licensed onshore operators are happy and they get the protection of the license. The government, obviously, the state obviously gets its player protection, it gets its tax revenues, and the players get the best value for choice so they don't have to go offshore. And we've come up with 6 variables really, that are all in that optimum betting market report that we publish with a lot of the operator associations through IBEA and through the EGBA, and also J Digital were involved in that just a year or so ago. And basically, these are the variables that we think make up good market balance. So, unlimited licensing, a taxation in that sweet spot of 15 to 20%, we'd say, of GGR makes for a good market. A full suite of available products, including those live games, player protection, so proactive work there, particularly working with third-party charities and organizations on responsible gambling. Advertising and marketing, and it's a point that was made by the user association very early in the morning about the importance of involving the users in this decision. Consumer education of licensed onshore operators to the playing public. You don't see that enough in many of the markets. The focus is always on restrictions. And law enforcement, trying to minimize that offshore market. Spain is not too bad on many of these, but in number 5, it's where it's underperforming significantly. And we believe those markets that focus on opening out their onshore provision, educating the consumers as to who the licensed onshore operators are and why you should wager with them, and putting in place levels to combat the offshore market going forward will be the ones that are the strongest. I hope that helps provide some food for thought going forward, but that just gives you a snapshot of what we found as H2 recently. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. And I know we give you limited time, but I think there was a lot of great information in that presentation. We have time for one quick question to David, if you have any. If you can please state your name and...
Santiago Asensi from Asensi Abogados. Good morning, very interesting presentation. I wanted to ask you, do you have any figures about what's the impact of the fraudulent behavior in the GGR of the different countries? Fraudulent behavior by players. That includes match fixing or any other kind of fraudulent behavior.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have it in the slides or in the presentation, but that is something that we do track. Yeah, and you find in a lot of countries, it is flatlined, if not declined in instances. And that can be because, through the online, if you have a mature online market, it's obviously a lot easier to track player behavior than through a land-based market.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Santiago. Thank you, David.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming. Thank you.